Recognizes Representative Kamek for her 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you to our witnesses. Commissioner Carr, great to see you again. You could hardly get a word in edgewise a minute ago, so would you like to take 30, 45 seconds or so to respond to the representative's accusations, we'll say?
Well, as a general matter, I'll say this. There's a lot of discussion here about prices and affordability, but thanks to President Trump, that's changing. Since January 2025 alone, prices for wireless plans are down over 4%. They're down over 7% from Biden-era highs. Prices for smartphones are down 9%, and speeds are up. So prices are down, speeds are up, and competition is intensifying. With respect to broadband labels, if you look at the chart that was held up, it's very confusing. And that's the point that we're looking at, is how do we get the information that consumers want, whether it's ETF or other information, so that they can find it and see it accurately and quickly. Let's separate the wheat from the chaff, and that's what that proceeding is about.
Absolutely, and we've seen an immense amount of deregulation, which is good for consumers because it helps foster that competition. I know you have spoken to me about the Reins Act and the work that is being done there. Talking about Reins Act being the largest regulatory reform effort in American history, what would the passage and adoption of that bill, which would require Congress to have an up or down vote on any major rule or regulation that has an industry impact of $100 million, what kind of impact would that have at your agency?
I think it's important, again, as we just talked about, we did a sweep through all rules and regulations on the FCC's books. We've eliminated over 1,000 rules or regulations or teed them up for removal. We have over 2,000 inactive proceedings. Again, you think about one agency, the FC, it's actually a relatively small agency, and you spread that out across the federal government. So some mechanism to make sure that needless regulations aren't getting on the books and staying on the books would really help unlock further economic growth for the country.
And I just want to repeat that again for folks watching back home. You guys took over 1,000 regulations off the books, and prices are coming down. It's almost like the smaller government gets, the better it gets for people across America, right?
Right.
Okay, I love that. Well, another issue that you and I have talked about, and I know everyone can really understand, is the issue of robocalls and scam texts. I must get half a dozen or a dozen a day, and it makes you want to throw your phone across the room. Talk to me about the work that the agency is doing to stop the scam texts and the fraud that's taking place there, and what authorities or additional authorities your agency would need in order for us to crack down on these robocalls and these scam texts.
This is an issue that across the Trump administration and really every administration we've had, there's been a lot of work to crack down on illegal robocalls. Right now, we're coordinating across the federal level, whether it's the FCC, FTC, we're working with state attorney generals as well. And again, we are tackling this issue at every single portion of the life cycle of the call. We're looking at things like know your customer. So if you're going to onboard a business to allow them to place calls to U.S. subscribers, we're pushing to make sure those telephone companies know much more about those businesses, both so that they're legit, and if there's an issue, we can then track it back. So I think Congress could potentially legislate more on the KYC know your customer rules to strengthen those even further. But there's some room for the FCC to push, and we're going to do that.
Well, and I know so many of these robocalls and some of these scam texts originate from overseas. We've really graduated from the Nigerian prince who just needs $5,000 and then he'll, make you a millionaire. We've really graduated the scams, right? Talk to me about your coordination efforts with your counterparts overseas and what we need to do here in Congress to strengthen that.
Well, one idea that we are pursuing at the FCC is the idea that if you get a call on your phone from abroad, it shouldn't necessarily, in my view, display a US-based area code, because that could mislead someone to think that this is a call originating in the US. So if you're a company and you want to have a call center overseas, at least be truthful and honest with your customers. So we're looking at that. We're looking at potentially doing standards for call centers to make sure that foreign call centers are compliant with our customer service regulations. And so there's a lot of efforts we're taking on that front.
I love it. So again, for folks watching back home, the Trump administration under your leadership is tackling robocalls and scam texts. That's something every American can get behind. I love that. So I want to, in my last 30 seconds, talk about the letter that Chairman Hudson sent talking about broadcast ownership caps. Now, there's some debate about whether or not the FCC has the authority to do this on their own or not, and I'd like to get your thoughts in the final 20 seconds that I have on the clock.
Well, on the authority, this question has been brought up to the D.C. Circuit already, and the D.C. Circuit said that 39% is the starting point for the FCC's analysis. So I don't think the legal authority issues are that compelling, but we're still looking at it to see if the FCC wants to change its position on that. And again, I think we're still open-minded, but again, we're cognizant of this idea that you've got licensed local broadcasters, and I know I'm out of time, but I think as a Congress, it's important that we figure out, do we want investment in local news? Because right now, you've got Comcast and Disney that are programming almost 100% of the content that Americans are seeing. And how do we incentivize the local TV stations to continue to generate their own local news and information?
Absolutely. We're not in the business of supporting monopolies, so I appreciate that. And with that, my time has expired. Thank you to all our witnesses for being with us. I yield.